Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. We'll chant Om once together. Synchronize the chanting of Om with your exhalation. Breathe in. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gently open your eyes. We'll chant from verses 16 to 20 of chapter 3. Evam pravartitam chakram.
Evam pravartitam chakram.
Nanuvartayati hayah.
Nanuvartayati hayah.
Aghayurindriya ramah.
Aghayurindriya ramah.
Mogham partha sajivati.
Mogham partha sajivati.
Yastvat maratireva syad.
Yastvat maratireva syad.
Atmatriptascha manavah.
Atmatriptascha manavah.
Atmanyeva cha santushtah.
Atmanyeva cha santushtah.
Tasya karyam na vidyate.
Tasya karyam na vidyate.
Naiva tasya krite narthah.
Naiva tasya krite narthah.
Na krite neha kaschana.
Na krite neha kaschana.
Na chasya sarva bhuteshu.
Na chasya sarva bhuteshu.
Kaschidarthavyapashrayah.
Kaschidarthavyapashrayah.
Tasmadasaktah satatam.
Tasmadasaktah satatam.
Karyam karma samachara.
कार्यं कर्म समाचर
असक्तो ह्याचरन् कर्म
असक्तो ह्याचरन् कर्म
परमाप्नोति पूरुषः
परमाप्नोति पूरुषः
कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम्
कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम्
आस्थिता जनकादयः
आस्थिता जनकादयः
लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि
लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि
सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि
सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि
Hari Om, and a very good day to all of you. So in the last session, we have just entered verse number 18. Which essentially continues the line of thought from the previous verse. It describes that exalted state of a yogi, of a spiritually evolved person. Now, the difficulty in understanding this arises because spiritual perfection is not merely an extension of whatever you're experiencing, but it is of another dimension, the infinite dimension. When you're dealing with the finite, now you can compare. You say, this gives me X amount of pleasure. Now this gives me more than that. So you can extend this pleasure a little more and understand. But when it comes to a different dimension, here we are talking of the infinite dimension, it becomes almost impossible for you to understand fully. Maximum you can understand is that this infinite state is an extension of whatever you're experiencing. See, even in mathematics, when you keep on adding the finite, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, what is it equal to? Now, generally speaking, they'll say infinite. But if you go and ask a mathematician, he will say very technically it is not equal to infinite. It is tending towards the infinite, because we really don't know what the infinite is. Because infinite minus 1 is also infinite. Infinite plus 1 is also infinite. So the rules which are applicable at the finite level is not really applicable at the infinite level. If you say what is the difference between the number 2 and 1, you can compare. You can say when you add one more to the number 1, you get 2. So what is the difference between in distance, in terms of distance between 1 meter and 2 meters. You can say 2 meters is a further extension of 1 meter. All these things can be given. But if you ask what is the difference between 1 and infinite, now that is impossible to explain. So, the highest experience is at the highest dimensional level, the infinite dimensional level. So, anything beyond this present dimension itself is very difficult to understand. You need to move into that experience to be able to fully grasp it. And here he is talking about the infinite dimension. Then how much more difficult it is for him to explain and for you to understand. So there is a very huge gap. What bridges that gap is this yogic approach which our great masters have given us. They had used it very effectively to bridge this gap between the finite and the infinite. In the yogic approach, we start from the finite, we start from where you are, and then slowly move up till you merge with the infinite. So you will have to be very patient when you are studying these verses, the verses which talk about the infinite state, or the verses which talk about the person who has reached the infinite state. There may be a lot of contradictions, apparently. Certain things which he may say may not be graspable straight away. So you will have to patiently go into the depth of it, keep getting inspired, keep doing your sadhana, and then again coming back to it. It's a gradual process. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he gives a beautiful example. When someone asked him, "Sir, the joy which you are experiencing, the pleasure or joy which you are experiencing in being connected with God, how do I understand it?" Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, "You cannot understand." He said, "No, sir, can you please explain to me? I really want to understand this." He said, "It's not possible to explain and it's not possible for you to understand." So the person kept on asking. So then he said, "Try explaining the pleasure which you get out of sexual union to a 5-year-old kid." Now that man was taken aback. He said, "Can you do that? The child is tasting a candy and you're trying to explain to the child." So he asked that person, "Does the child have the capacity to understand?" He said, "No." "Can you explain to the child?" He said, "Almost impossible." Maximum what the child can conceive, if at all the child, after a while you ask the child, "Do you understand?" The child will say, "Is that more pleasurable than the candy which I am having? That's all the child can conceive. It's a very beautiful example which he gave that actually hits the nail on the head. The reason why these scriptures are being misunderstood, they have been misunderstood at every period of time. What is the reason? It's because of this only. They are talking about the highest dimensional experience, and you are at a lower dimensional experience. Whatever your experiences are at a lower dimension. So how is it possible to understand? You experience a few things in life, like when he talks of, the previous verse we saw, no? Ratihi, truptaha, tushtaha and all that. So happiness. Now you get happiness out of a few things in the world when you're contacting the sense objects, or when you get some name and fame, little happiness you get, whatever you call as happiness. Now maximum you will ask is it an extension of that? Is that higher state more happy in terms of quality and quantity when compared to whatever I'm experiencing now? You can neither say yes nor can you say no to that. Just as when a child asks, what will you answer? So, any amount of explaining to the child is of no use. The child has to grow. The child has to grow physically. The child has to grow mentally, emotionally. The whole personality has to grow. Similarly, when it comes to spirituality, your consciousness has to grow. It is only when your consciousness starts expanding that you will begin to understand whatever he's saying. That is why I keep cautioning that these verses are not meant for mere intellectual analysis. That is only a start. When you analyze intellectually, you will start getting a basic idea of what this is. But for you to fully grasp this, you have to take to the yogic approach. That is the only way. It is the sadhana which you do which will affect that growth of your consciousness. And as your consciousness starts growing, your understanding of these same principles will start changing. The principles being the same, your understanding, your absorption will go on changing. That is why, some of these empowerment courses have been made online. Now, I tell people, when you register for that, because I'm not talking of the one where we have it live. I'm talking of those that are available online, where you can just register and do the course. Now, I always tell sadhaks that don't consider it as a repetition. Oh, I'm doing the Kaya Tattva again. I'm doing the Prana Tattva again. You may say that just for functionality purpose, but otherwise don't believe that you're repeating the course. No, it is not a repetition. It is a fresh course. Every time you do it, it will be fresh for you because your consciousness is continuously changing. Why an empowerment? Even these Sunday sessions. Now, if you go back to the previous week's session, now you will not find it the same. The material is the same, but your consciousness would have grown. It's so dynamic. So we can't really fix these things and say, this is what it is, this is what. You have to be flexible and you have to keep doing your sadhana and growing constantly. As long as you are growing, you will ensure that your understanding is deepening. The same words, that is what is interesting. For example, if you say detachment, 5 years back, what was your understanding of detachment? The problem is you would have forgotten by now. Now what is your understanding? It's a very big difference. You can do the small experiment and see. Just take up some previous discourse, the Sunday session, and watch it again. You will find that it is like a fresh session for you. Actually, one sadhak had mentioned that on a particular Sunday he heard the previous session again, thinking it is that Sunday session, you know. He didn't notice the date and all that. So he by chance he went to the previous talk and he heard it, and he was thinking it was that Sundays. Not that he slept off the previous week or anything. So it was an amazing experience for him. He said, sir, I thought I'll much after the whole thing only I realized. But when I was listening to it, it sounded so fresh, as if it's for the first time I'm hearing all this. Why is that? It's because the consciousness keeps on growing day by day, minute by minute, moment by moment. Your consciousness is evolving because you're in this path, this yogic path. You may not realize that your consciousness is growing within a short span of time, but if you give a longer span, you can definitely notice the changes. So, what approach do you need to take? You should never conclude something and become fanatic about it. See, when Bhagavan Dattatreya said, be a Nitya Sadhak, Nitya Shishya, means an eternal learner. What did he mean? He meant to say that you should constantly have the spirit of learning within you. At any point of time, if you conclude, and then if you get into the spirit that, now I know it, I have understood it fully, your growth will stop there. From that level, your understanding would be correct. But as your consciousness keeps growing, you will miss out on that entire growth. So the path to the infinite is very tricky, because at every step you're going to feel this is the highest. Whatever I've understood is the highest. Once one sadhak, she had been following all the sessions. Those days it was not online, We used to have it live in the auditorium. So she had been attending these sessions for many years, for about 5 to 7 years. And she showed me her notes. She said, "Sir, it's amazing. Just this word objectivity, in the span of 5 years or so, you have talked about objectivity some 23 times or something, some number she gave. And she showed me that each time it was different. There were some similarities, because ultimately it's the same principle we are talking about. But every time there was something new. So according to whoever is receiving, what is the person's consciousness level, naturally a particular dimension would have been revealed. So she made a collection, 23 dimensions of objectivity. Now if you ask me, "Sir, can you please give us the 23 dimensions?" Now I don't remember. See, it's just on the spot, spontaneously, when whatever the requirement is, that particular aspect of this wisdom will start flowing. So even in classical music, a creative artist, now he will find it very difficult to repeat the same thing again. If he plays something creative and then say, "No, play it again," he'll say, "What did I play?" I mean, he'll find it difficult. That's why when it comes to creative artists, they try to capture that person, whatever that person is playing or singing, as and when that happens. Repetition becomes very difficult. So it is all dependent on the consciousness of the student, the consciousness level. So here is a great opportunity for you. You're being exposed to this. So how can you ensure that you don't misunderstand? See, whatever you understand will be only at your level. See, this is a question which has been asked by one of the sadhaks. Because in the last session, I had mentioned about misunderstanding. Half-baked knowledge is more dangerous than ignorance, not knowing at all. So the question which has been raised is a beautiful question. What he is asking is, at any point of time, my knowledge will be incomplete only, because I have not yet reached the infinite level. So to that extent, my understanding will be limited. I wouldn't have fully understood this. So then how do I function? That is his question. The answer to that is, yes, no doubt it is true that your understanding will be only up to your level. So as a sadhak, what you can do is maintain that spirit of learning. Yes, I understand this much better now. That should be your spirit. Not that, now I've understood, I've understood this fully. Keep the spirit of learning always alive, and never become fanatic about your ideas. This is not being unsure. Whatever you understand, apply that in your life. It is only through application that you can digest that, you can move further up. Be very sure about your understanding, but be open-minded. Because you would have experienced this. In one Sunday I say one thing, the next Sunday about the same thing I may say it in a different way. So the yogic approach is designed such that it will keep on challenging your understanding. It is only when you challenge what you know that you can you can gain further knowledge. If you don't challenge your present level of knowledge, how is it possible to grow further? So that is the answer. This is the answer to that question. At any point of time, no doubt, there will be a limitation. The problem is when you stop your growth and when you say, yes, I know it all. That is when the real problem comes. As long as you are maintaining the spirit of learning, whatever it is that you are absorbing from your level, put it into practice. Be sure about it. No need to think, oh, my knowledge is limited, so how can I apply it? No, at your level, your knowledge is complete. Supposing you understand this, let us say 20%, to the extent of 20%, and your level is 20%. Then with respect to that level, whatever your understanding is will be complete. Use that. Is this clear? It's a very important point. It's because the context was created by that sadhak by asking this question that I'm explaining. See, it's only when the context is there that these the subtleties can be explained. So, in verse number 18, which we just started last week, he says, for him means that person who has reached the highest level, which about whom he was talking in the previous verse. So for that person, there is no motive to act or to not act here. Artha means motive. No artha, that is no motive to act, kritena, and then he uses the word akritena. Akrite means inaction, no activity. So there is no motive to not to act also. And then there are no beings. Sarva bhuteshu means is considering all the beings. Either there are no beings, or again he uses the word artha. Here in this context, artha means objects. So there are no beings or objects which he is dependent on. Vyapashraya. It's a beautiful word. It is a very deep principle. Vyapashraya exactly tells you how you are binding yourself to this world, how you are binding yourself to action. And here he says that person is not dependent on anything. When we go into the depth of it, you will get a lot of sadhana tips. As we go along, you will see that. So essentially, what is he doing in this verse? He is removing all your misconceptions. What is perfection? How will a perfect person be? You will have your own idea. Now, whatever your idea is about perfection or a perfected soul, a perfected person, that is a self realized master, will necessarily have to be limited. It has to be wrong. Why? Because you are in a state of imperfection. So, from a state of imperfection, whatever you conceive about perfection will all be wrong only. This is the problem which Arjuna is facing. Actually, if you go to the second chapter, he doesn't recognize Krishna as a Sthita Prajna. He is so close to Krishna physically, but he only sees him as a friend. That is why he asks Krishna, how does a Sthita Prajna walk, how does he talk, how does he sit and all that. And Krishna doesn't straight away tell him, listen, why are you asking all this? Just look at me. That is enough. That would have been a simple answer, no? How does the Sthita Prajna talk? I am talking, no? That there ends the matter. That should have been the right answer. But Krishna didn't take that route. Because of Arjuna's limitations, he is not seeing him as a Sthita Prajna. In the initial stages, he saw him as a person, as his friend who knew probably a little bit. It is as the where the Bhagavad Gita progressed that Arjuna began to understand who really Krishna was, what is his spiritual state. All that he began to understand later. And when Krishna gave him a glimpse of what that universal form is in Vishwarupa Darshana chapter, Arjuna became frightened. He said, Krishna, thinking that you were just my friend, I joked with you, I teased you and all that. Please forgive me for that. Don't keep all that in mind. He got so frightened. So, whatever your understanding of a Sthita Prajna or a yogi will have to necessarily be limited. But then, should you put an effort to understand or not? Of course, yes. Go by your understanding, but don't become close-minded. So, in the previous verse, he said, for him there is no obligation, na karyam. He used the word karyam. There are no duties as such. In the sense, it is not that the person is compelled. There is no compulsion to act. That is the meaning of it. It shouldn't be misunderstood as that person will stop doing his duties. No. Actually, it is only when you have no compulsion and when you take it up willingly that you can do a duty in a better way, or rather in the best possible way. When something is forced upon you, you will not be able to do it properly because your heart will not be there. Even this session, supposing let us say somebody is holding you by the collar or at gunpoint, and you have to listen to this session. Supposing somebody is doing that. Now, can you really enjoy the session? No, because you will not be connected through your emotions. So, when it is said that that person has nothing to do, no obligation, no duty, doesn't mean he will not do his duty. There is no compulsion. Now, that is what is being expanded in this verse. Why one full verse? Actually, he is only going to say, he is not this, it is not that, it is not this. It's only a language of negation which he is using, but for one full verse, because your misunderstandings are so strong. See, more than even the misunderstanding, the unwillingness to learn further is very deeply ingrained in the mind. The moment you know a few things, you get into that ego that I know it all, and you stop learning. So in order to push you to learn, in order to trigger that learning factor within you, he is negating whatever it is that you may conclude. So the first thing which you will conclude is, oh, that person will, that is realization beyond all pleasures. So that person will have no enjoyment. He is at ratihi. We saw that in detail. Ratihi is usually used with a sensual pleasure. So he is using that term. And then he said, triptaha, santushtaha. All these words were used just to smash your wrong ideas. And then you may think that, oh, that person will be so duty bound, which is true only, but you may think that person will take up the burden of the duty. So he said, no, there is no duty for that person. Again, you get confused. What does it mean there is no duty? Means duty is no longer a burden for him. We will anyway be seeing, because here he is talking about action. So the same principle only in a more expanded way. We'll be seeing that in detail. So having removed your misconceptions, or rather having made you question whatever you know a little bit in the previous verse, now he is continuing that same trend in verse number 18, and he is going to intensify. By negating everything which you are concluding, you will be forced to pause here and ask yourself, then who is Asthita Prajna? What is his state? What is that state of the person who has merged with the infinite? Till you come to that state of no ego, he will not leave you. That is why I gave you the small homework in the last session. Just do some deep breathing, get into the feeling of I don't know anything, and then read this verse. It's a very beautiful sadhana. So when you did that, you would have observed that it would have started inspiring you, even though you may not have understood it fully. That inspiration is coming because that sadhana which you did triggered the learning factor within you. So the more you strip yourself of that I know it all, that is the ego, that I know it, you would be able to get inspired with this verse. So what is he saying? For him, that is a self-realized person, the continuation from the previous verse, there is no motive to act or to not act here. So in the previous verse he talked about duty. Now he is talking about action versus avoiding action. So your first misconception would be or your first idea would be that person will be constantly active. Because we talk of dynamism, action, all these things. The very chapter itself is Karma Yoga. So that is what you will understand. Immediately it says there is no motive to act. So that gets neutralized. Then you will go to the other extreme. And when I say you, I mean your mind, how it functions. The mind will go to the other extreme. Oh, this person doesn't have any motive to act. Then that person probably will not act at all. He says, no, there is no motive to not act also. Now you are totally stumped. He has no motive to act or not to act. Then what is that state? This is exactly the question which he is attempting to trigger within you. Of course, we'll be going into the depth. I'll be giving you the deeper meaning, the different dimensions of certain principles and all that. But at every step, if you maintain that spirit of learning, you will gain maximum from this verse. See, I'm spending so much of time in explaining the psychology of this verse so that you benefit fully. Otherwise, it's easy to just pass through, because I've already explained many things in the previous verse. We can just pass through this. But for you to get the full impact, we have to pause here and rebuild that spirit of learning. So, the word used here is artha. Artha literally means motive. The first meaning is motive. Now, constantly you are driven by motives. Whether you act or whether you avoid an action, there is always a motive. But here he is saying this person has no motives. He is in a state of neutrality. See, primarily what you need to understand is, which I explained in the previous verse, that person has a choice. See, when you have a pressure to act, there is no choice. Or when there is a pressure to avoid action, again there is no choice. You are constantly having two kinds of pressures within you, either to act or to avoid action. There are many things which you want to do. Now you may ask me, sir, is it wrong to want to do? We are not discussing whether it's right or wrong. I'm only explaining what's happening. There is a pressure to do so many things. There is a pressure to earn wealth. There is a pressure to, when I say pressure, the inner urge is what I'm talking about. There is a pressure to start relationships. There is a pressure to gain name and fame. So this is on one hand. On the other hand, you want to avoid many things. For example, let us say a person is constantly insulting you. Now you want to avoid that experience. So there is a pressure to avoid action also. So this pressure is what he is calling as motives. Now here, this person is free of that inner pressure. It's not that he will not act. When it is required, he may act. When it is required, he will not act. That depends on the situation. But he will not be pressurized from within. He will clearly decide whether this action is required or not, and then he will take a decision. See, if you don't understand this properly, you will misunderstand this as a very dry state. A state where there is no life at all, In Sanskritam language, it's called shushka. Shushka means dryness. Most people think spirituality means it is dryness. No emotions, no feelings, nothing. And these are the verses which can be misunderstood further. No motive to act, no motive not to act. Then that person is just sitting there without any emotion in a very dry way. It is not that. Even when I am saying sitting there, that is also not acting. No, he is saying no motive not to act. So you go a little further. That person is in a state of neutrality. See, it is only when you are in a position of neutrality, you can choose either to go to the left or go to the right, or whatever, go straight or whatever it is. There is a choice only when you are in a state of neutrality. If your car is already running at a very high speed and your steering is turned towards the left, you have no choice. The car will turn towards the left only. Supposing whatever direction you are taking is wrong, it's not beneficial for you, you will not be able to change the course. Whereas this person is always in a neutral position. So he decides. Now, is his action required now? Yes, then he will do it. This action is not required now, it is unnecessary, he will not do that action. So, he doesn't have any motive to act or to avoid action, but he goes by the merit of the situation. This is the advantage of being in a neutral position. So, at any given moment in life, you are always in a position to choose. But when you are pressurized from within in one direction, then you are unable to choose. That urge or that pressure pushes you in that direction. That was the problem which Arjuna was facing. 13 years there was a pressure to go for this war within him. But when the actual war came, the situation came, and when he saw all his cousins and friends, relatives standing in the opposite side, now suddenly there was a pressure to give up action and run away. Now, if you take Krishna, he neither wanted the war nor did he want to avoid the war. It all depends upon the situation. War is an extreme action, but the same principle is applicable on a daily basis, moment to moment. How much should I eat today? It depends on that day. Sir, some people ask, the Kahe Tattva program, and we had many people, sir, how many glasses of water should I drink every day? It all depends. If it is very hot that day, you automatically will feel more thirsty. So you can't fix this so many glasses of water every day. This much food I'll have. See, that is a problem with many so-called diet plan and all that which they give. They say, take 1 spoon of this vegetable, half a chapati, or 1 bowl of rice, this much. I had taught you in that Kaya Tattva empowerment program how you should determine the quantity. You should go by your inner requirement. So many steps I had given. The first step is that hunger should be there. What is that hunger? We saw Jataragni, as our yogis called it. And then how much should you eat? The solid food. Similarly, with respect to water, with respect to the yogic exercises, with respect to everything. Some people say you should keep on doing one particular pranayama. Let's say, for example, Kapalabhati. Continuously you keep on doing every day. No. If your body is overheated, you should not do that. You should do certain other pranayamas which will cool your system. See, it all depends on the situation. It's so dynamic. Even when you're doing the Yoga Sankirtan sadhana every day, why is it that I tell you sit and do the sadhana without expecting anything? Because your mind will expect, supposing let's say today you have a very nice experience, calm, it's so lovely. Now next day when you sit, you will be expecting the same calm experience. But next day may be a very aggressive healing day. The same Yoga Sankirtan energy may go really within you and bring out so many negativities from within. So then you just need to do the deep breathing and release all that. Each session will be different. You will be able to appreciate it only if you are in a state of neutrality. So, at the outset itself, people have many issues. The moment we say Yoga Sankirtan Dhyana, the moment they hear the word Dhyana, meditation, now you already have a preconceived notion of what is meditation. So many people say, sir, I'm trying my best, but I'm not able to concentrate, when I'm doing Yoga Sankirtan. Where was it said concentrate and all that? It is your preconceived notion. You're already, you're having some ideas and you're trying to impose it on the sadhana. So your inner pressure, either to act or to avoid action, gets imposed on your decision making. So your decisions will invariably be wrong. You will not be in a position to see what is right in that situation. Rather, you will go by your personal preferences. It is like, there is a competition. There's a competition, and the judge is sitting there. Now, the judge may personally like one contestant, but if the other contestant performs better, now he has to give the prize to that person only. But if he goes by his personal preference, then he may give it to the person who has not performed well. So always in life, if you are in a neutral position, it's a very big advantage because you can very clearly decide. That is, with all the clarity of mind, you will be in a position to decide whether you should take up this course of action or whether you should avoid that and take up something else. In life, you're constantly facing such situations where you need to decide. So when he says this person has no motive to act or not to act, he is talking about that state of neutrality. And what is very interesting here in this verse, he uses the word iha. Iha means here. What does that signify? A yogi is always here in this present moment. See, when you are in a state of neutrality, you are fully there in the present moment. If you are not in a state of neutrality, your mind will either be in the past or the future. It will move towards this direction or that direction. So, that word iha here is very important here. It means this world, the present context, the present moment. A yogi is one who is totally there in the present, but it is out of choice. Nobody forces him to do that. His mind also doesn't force him to be in the present. He is naturally in the state of neutrality, in the present moment, here, always available, fully available to either move in this direction or that direction. Now, which direction should he take? That depends upon the merit of the situation. Whichever direction is going to be more effective, he will move in that direction. So, we can see that in the life of Lord Krishna. Before the war, he went as a peacemaker to meet the Kauravas. He tried to avoid the war because war means a lot of people will die and all that. It's not a very pleasant thing. So he did his best. At that situation, he kept the option open. He went there as a peacemaker and he tried to convince Duryodhana, he tried to convince Dhritarashtra. He did his best. He even went to the extent of saying, Duryodhana, you can share the throne with Yudhishthira. Just imagine if you, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, you both join hands, if you both come together, now no force in the world can defeat you. It is actually so beneficial for you. All that he tried. Because the war hadn't yet started. But then Duryodhana refused. He said, nothing doing. So up to that moment, Krishna tried his best to avoid the war. But the moment the situation came where there was the war, now Krishna didn't get into how to avoid this. He was fully there. Of course, he didn't take up any weapons. He didn't fight directly, but he was fully active in the war. Whereas, what is Arjuna doing? When the war was not there, he was angry and he wanted a war. When the war situation came, now he wants to run away. This is how the mind functions. You want something so much, but when that comes to you, then you do the opposite. You run away. You want a partner in life. You want to get married. You're craving for love. But then when you get a partner, you're so rude to the partner. You take that path now. That has been so beautifully depicted by, the background incident of the Bhagavad Gita. That is how Arjuna, before the war, he wanted the war, and during the war, he is now wanting something else. This is the personal motive. He is not in a state of neutrality. He is unable to take effective decisions. Krishna didn't jump into the war. He took his time to try and convince the opponents, no need for a war. But when the war came, he was fully in it. So it is not that a master will not act. No. That's why he has given both. Will he act, sir, or will he not act? What will a master do? It just depends upon the situation. He is a spontaneous person. Even when the same question is asked to a master, he may give two different answers depending upon the person who is asking. Why? Because that is how life is. Life is so dynamic. You can never predict anything. A spiritual person enjoys that flexibility. He is so spontaneous, life becomes so interesting for him. If you are already committed in one direction, there is no interest. See, for example, every Sunday we are having these sessions. Now, when these sessions are being taken, it is a new session, fresh session. Last session you may have grasped well, but I will not now go by that and say, therefore, this also you will understand. No. Depending upon how you are receiving, the energy will be modulated. It's the same principle in healing also. There is no one standard method of healing. That's why these healing courses and all that which they conduct, they are all very limited because they are all talking of one particular way of healing. But when we come to the higher yogic healing, which our great yogis have given, it is accessing that force, the infinite energy, the Sanjeevani Shakti, and then thereafter the healing is so dynamic. In one situation, healing may be done at the physical level, in another situation it may be done at the karmic level. It all varies. There are thousands and thousands of methods. But which method will you use in which situation, that just depends on the context. So, there is no motive to act or not act here, being in a state of neutrality. So, take this up means this principle and reflect on this week. Look at the decisions which you are making in life on a day-to-day basis. Just find out, is your decision colored? You will already have some internal force which is pressurizing you in one direction, and therefore your decision will not necessarily be perfect. Sometimes it may coincide with the right decision, but that is only an accident. Don't conclude straight away. If you find that inner pressure is there, then you do some sadhana and release that, and then look at the situation. What is the right thing for me to do here? Your decisions will become very effective. In the management programs which I conduct for the corporates, especially leaders, the top the top tier, decision making is one of the key things which they always ask for. How to improve the decision making capacity. how to align it with the perfect decision. This is one of the points to practice being in the state of neutrality before you decide, especially before you decide something very important in life. You need to practice this. Otherwise, your emotion may just come and influence you, and it will push you in one direction which may not necessarily be good for you in the long run. It may be good for you, it may not be good for you. But for you to examine that critically, for your intellect, buddhi, to function in a sharp way, you need to be in a state of neutrality. This principle can be applied everywhere, in your office, with respect to your relationships, more so when it comes to spiritual sadhana also. When you sit and watch this every Sunday, take that Sunday as a fresh session. When you sit and do the Yoga Sankirtan sadhana every day, it is a fresh session for you. Get into the state of neutrality and then do the sadhana. Just practice this a little bit and see. First you grasp this point and then put it into practice. Approach each day with that freshness. How can you do that? If you are in a neutral position, you will be able to do that. So we will stop with that here. Do this small homework and come. I'll give you more and more sadhana tips. It's a very deep principle which he has given here. We will go into it in detail in the coming sessions. So before we do the Nididhyasana meditation, I will take up one question. So one of the sadhaks has put this question in the YouTube section. Dear Guruji, I have a query after today's session. I have noticed recently that I am not as reactive. She has put reactive in quotes. Reactive to some situations as I used to be. But I have a hard time figuring out whether it is good or bad. Is it because, number one, I have given up trying to change something outside me because I realize I am the modifiable factor in the equation? Have I actually evolved a bit after all? Or she is given the second option. Deep down, I don't care anymore in a bad way, whatever happens. So I'll be very grateful for your insights and guidance. My sincere gratitude again. You've been a wonderful positive influence and inspiration in my life. Thank you. It's very nice. So this is a beautiful question where you stop reacting to situations. Now, is it a positive state or is it a negative state? That is what she has asked. Now, this will be very useful to all the sadhaks. See, when you stop reacting to situations and that leads you to stop your correction activity, then it means it is not a positive thing. Follow this very carefully. First is your internal reaction to a situation. Let's say there is an unpleasant situation. For example, let's say a person is insulting you. Now, what is being told here is, okay, that person is insulting, but don't allow that insult to mar your happiness. So no need to react. This is the training which is given. This is on one hand, your internal reaction. The second half of it, which is very crucial, is your external action. Where it is required and where it can be corrected, you need to take corrective action. Just because you are not reacting doesn't mean you allow that person to insult. You may have to tell that person, clearly communicate that this is not acceptable. Sometimes you may even have to use a little bit of harshness, because that is a language which the other person can understand. But internally, you need to be in a very calm and composed state. This is the biggest challenge, actually, which this ancient wisdom will give you this beautiful combination. So, the fact that you are having a doubt, is this positive or negative, itself means there is a negative tinge. If there is no negative tinge, there will be no doubt at all. So you're not reacting. Is it because of a maturity, spiritual maturity, or is it because you're suppressing yourself? This is what you need to find out. When you suppress your reactions, actually the reactions are there, but you're just fooling yourself. You're telling yourself, you're philosophizing and saying, oh, it is all, I am the creator. All these kinds of philosophy you use to kind of you justify whatever your inabilities are. It shouldn't be that. Then it becomes a weakness. See, we take the Bhagavad Gita example. Krishna was obviously not a reactive person. He was an avatar. He cannot be reactive. But yet, when the war had to happen, when he gave a choice to the other person and still the other person didn't change, war had to happen. He was fully in it. What was his war for? It was a corrective step to establish righteousness. He took that corrective action. But internally, he was calm, composed. He had the same love for the opponents and for, there is the Kauravas and for the Pandavas. But action wise, it was a corrective action for the Kauravas. It was a different supportive action for the Pandavas. So you've given these two things. One is, I am the modifiable factor. It is no doubt true, but just find out whether you're suppressing. You're reacting, but you're trying to suppress it. And deep down, I don't care anymore in a bad way. That is a very clear indication that it is not positive. Not being reactive is not a tamasic state. It is a sattvic state. So you are actually being reactive, that you are getting affected, but you are just kind of suppressing it. Then that becomes negative for you. So first thing is your internal reaction. Second is your external corrective action. What steps have you taken to correct the situation? When you are not reacting in a positive sense, it will keep your mind calm, it will sharpen your intellect to a very good extent for you to be able to take the right decisions and act properly and take corrective actions. So, spirituality is not passivity, it is being very dynamic, acting according to the situation. Okay, so you think about this. Very important points have been given. I'm so happy that you're taking up these points and you're practicing them in your life. See, because it is only when you practice them that you'll make mistakes, and when you make mistakes and you come back and ask me, then only I can teach you more subtleties. For a person who has not even applied or who has not put any effort to practice this answer has no relevance. But for those sincere sadhaks who are genuinely trying to put this into practice, the tips which I just now gave will really be helpful. So, whatever reactions you have, release it through sadhana. When the empowerment is there, take the empowerment energy and further release it. And then, whatever is required at the action level, do the needful. Keep on practicing this till you perfect this art. This is one very essential aspect of Karma Yoga. Okay, so now we'll do Nididhyasana meditation. Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. With every breath, I am becoming more and more relaxed. Feel the divine vibrations. With every breath, I am going deeper and deeper into myself. beyond my physical body, beyond my emotions and thoughts, lies my higher self, the infinite supreme reality. I am in a state of perfect neutrality. I am Swayam Prakashit, self-illuminating. Offer your gratitude to God Supreme. Offer your gratitude to your Guru and all the holy masters. Wriggle your fingers, your toes, open and close your palms a few times. Rub your palms together to create a warmth. And cup your eyes with your palms. Gently rub your eyes, your cheeks, forehead, the top of your head, the back of your head, your neck, and slowly open your eyes. Welcome back. So today we had a wonderful session. Some subtle principles have been given. Naturally, because this verse itself is dealing with very subtle principles. And since the chances of misunderstanding are very high, he's using the language of negation. He's just continuously negating. And that is what prompts us to pause here and go into the depth, not just rush through. So think about this, whatever was given to you, small homework was also given to you. Do that and come back. If you do the homework properly and then you come back the next session, a lot of spiritual desire would have gotten triggered. Because when you're practicing that, remember, the healing is also given in the background. So for those sadhaks who very sincerely take this up and follow everything, a lot of help is being given. Okay? So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next session. Hari Om.